Happy New Year everyone! Welcome to another video of Sunday Morning Drives. Today I'm in my Lotus Exige Final Edition 420 Sport. I've owned this vehicle for 2 years now. It's amazing how fast time flies when you are really enjoying something. I thoroughly enjoyed my ownership with this car. I'm very fortunate to be able to buy this brand new and having this as part of my garage. So today I will share with you my ownership experiences with this car, the good and the bad, things I like, I don't like, and my general thoughts and experiences with this car. So first of all, I'll show you some of the quirky features of the Exige. For some of you that doesn't really know the Lotus lineup, the Exige or the Elise very well, these cars in terms of their body structure, they are made out of extruded and bonded aluminium to save weight. So in the interior space, you can see there are a lot of exposed aluminium everywhere. I really like this actually. It looks very cool, very quirky and very unique. Even the pedals are made out of aluminium as well. Another quirky feature is the manual gearbox. This is an open gate mechanism that you can see through. It's very open. You can see it moving. And I love the shift action. It's very precise, very short, and very mechanical. So because of its lightweight ethos or concept, this car doesn't even come with a glove box. So all you get is a extruded aluminium frame that goes from one side to the other, and this acts as a little tray. So you can put your smaller belongings on here. There's no cover or nothing. This is all you get. My particular Exige is equipped with the extinguisher system and the kill switch system. So on the outside there are two buttons with two caps which you can remove. They have also two buttons inside as well. So one for the extinguisher system, one for the kill switch. You can use these on the track, so if you get into an accident, you can either use these switches from the inside or someone can access them from the outside. So the Exige is a mid-engine car. So for mid-engine cars, usually there are a trunk at the back and a frunk at the front where you can store things. But for the Exige, there is no frunk. Instead, there is a very large intercooler that sits right on top of here. So you can remove this carbon lid and all you can see is a large intercooler. So this is almost like a race car setup. Because of the Exige and the Elise, they're designed for track use. So this is to optimize airflow and better cooling. So you can see there's large opening in the front. Air goes inside here, goes through the intercooler. There are two fans here and comes all the way out. Another quirky thing about the Exige is there's no central control for the electric windows. So you have one for the driver and the other one for the passenger. So if the driver wants to open the passenger side window, I have to reach all the way out like that to open and close it. But luckily this is a very small cabin, so it's actually quite reachable. So I'm going to share with you 5 things that I really like about the Exige. First is the steering wheel and its steering feel. I think a good steering wheel and a good steering feel is so important for a sports car because this is where your hands actually interact with the car. So in the Exige, the steering wheel is actually very small. It's probably the smallest steering wheel that I have ever used in any sports car. But I think it fits the size of the Exige because the Exige is actually quite a small car as well. So with this steering wheel, you feel like you're almost driving a go-kart. And I also like how on the left and then right hand side of the steering wheel, there are two protrusions where your hands are really molded to the steering wheel. So when you're holding it tight, there's no gap whatsoever between your hands and the steering wheel. So that's a really, really good feeling. And also the steering feel, because this is a steering rack that does not have any assist at all, no hydraulic assist, no electric assist whatsoever. So you feel everything in your hands, from all the cambers, from the roads, the imperfections, it's all reflected through the steering wheel to your hands, and also the front grip as well. So it's a very, very amazing feeling. I don't think any sports car nowadays that can mimic this kind of steering feeling. Second thing I really like is the gearbox. As I mentioned before, this is an open gate gearbox. It's a 6-speed manual gearbox. I like the feeling of shifting in this car because the way it engages is very clicky, it's very tight, very short, and very accurate. The way it throws into gear, it's like loading a rifle, and I like the sound as well. I love using this manual gearbox, and also I think the weight of the clutch is also perfect. It's not very light, it's just the right weight. It's probably on the heavier side, but that's very good. I think a car like this gives you a more raw experience. The clutch should be a bit heavier. The third thing is the seats and also the sitting position. These seats are amazing. They are really thin and really light. They are bucket seats and they are fixed buckets, so you can't actually adjust the angle of your backrest. But I liked how they angled this. This angle is a bit more tilted than the ones in my GT3. It's more comfortable sitting in this for long journeys compared to the one in my 911 GT3. And also the sitting position as well. You sit really, really low on the floor of the car. So you feel like you are almost like, I don't know, like 10 centimeters or 10 to 12 centimeters off from the road. So you sit so low, your legs are able to stretch out. So it feels like you are in a proper supercar. The fourth thing I really like about the Exige is its rawness, because it has very minimal insulation. It's very small. The engine is right behind me. You can see the engine right there. This is the supercharger. You hear everything from this car, from the road noise, from stones hitting the under tray, to the engine noise, the intake noise just right here. The intake is here and here, and the engine roar, and also the exhaust. And also because everything fits together as a very visceral package, it's always very, very exciting driving this car. I just love it. The fifth thing that I like is the lightness of this car, and also that engine, that powertrain. So this car is really light. It's around 1.1 tons. So compared to some of the modern sports cars nowadays, this is really, really super light. And that engine there, although it's from Toyota, but with a supercharger that's put on by Lotus, this produces 420 horsepower, and the maximum torque actually comes in around 2000 RPM. So you can imagine that 420 horsepower that's pushing this lightweight car, the thrust and the sense of acceleration is just raw. It's just very, very amazing. The power to weight ratio is around the same as a 992 911 GT3, and also the braking as well, because of its lightweight. The way you brake, the way it stops, everything just feels much better with this lightweight. 5 things that I don't like about the Exige, because I think this is such a nice and exciting sports car. I'm pretty much probably just nitpicking here. So the first thing is the weight of the steering. So this is both pros and cons. Because it's not assisted, so at lower speed, especially when you're doing a 3-point turn or you're trying to do a reverse, this can get really heavy. For me, I am okay with that because the benefit of this is you get so much steering feel when the car starts moving. But for someone who's, for example, maybe a lady who's driving this, it can get really uncomfortable because it's really heavy at lower speeds. The second thing is getting in and out of the car. Because this has a bonded and extruded aluminum body structure, so the side structure of this car is really high. So the opening area of the door is actually quite small. So to get in and out is actually quite inconvenient. So for someone with like a larger body size or a taller person, it can get quite difficult to get in and out of this car. The third thing is the practicality of this car. As you've seen from my footage before, there's pretty much no storage inside the car. Just a couple of trays and a smaller tray down here, that is all. And there's no front at the front. There is only a boot space at the back, and the boot space is not very large. So if you want to travel long distance or long journey with this car, the luggage you can take is pretty limited. The fourth thing I don't really like about the car is the AIMS digital dash. The good thing about this car also is that they've changed the physical dials to this digital dial just to modernize the car, because this is the final edition. But the downside of having this digital dash is the brightness of the dash is actually quite dim, and also the fonts and the graphics is quite fine. So sometimes if you're driving during the day with bright sunlight, it's actually quite hard to see. The fifth thing, which is the last thing I don't like about this car, is some of the older parts that they use for the Exige and also the Elise. Although this is the final edition, but some of the parts that they are using are probably from, I don't know, the 90s when the car first came out. For example, the side mirrors, they look pretty dated, and you have to adjust them by hand. It's not electrically adjustable, so if you want to adjust them on the fly when you are driving, it's pretty much impossible, because then you have to wind down the windows and then use your hands to adjust, which is pretty much impossible. There's also one part where it gave me quite a bit of trouble when I was driving, is the wiper blade. It had a very old wiper blade. Again, it's probably from the 90s. It's really old, it's quite deteriorated, although it's a new car. But when I first got this car and I went out on a drive with some of the friends, it was pouring down with rain and the wiper was working quite hard. And I was driving halfway and suddenly the wiper actually broke. I was stranded because it was raining hard, I couldn't see anything. So I had to stop at the side of the road, and at the end I had to turn back and come back home, because it's just not safe for me to drive on. So yeah, these are some of the old parts that Lotus used to still use, because the Exige and Elise, they are now not in production anymore, but they have used these old parts for a long time without updating them. In terms of my ownership experience within this 2 years, it's been quite pleasant. There hasn't been any major mechanical issues with this car, and the service from Lotus has been pretty good. The only issues that I've had is, first, when the car came to me, I didn't realize that the rear wing stands, they were actually not the same length. One is actually higher than the other, so the wing actually looked crooked. I only found that out after like a month, because I just didn't notice it. I took it back to Lotus and they actually ordered the correct one for me. shipped it over by air mail, so I received it quite quickly. They painted it and replaced it, and it's all good. The second issue was a rattling noise from the engine bay whenever I accelerate. This started to happen around 3,000 kilometers. I took it to the dealership a few times actually, but they couldn't find what the issue was. But then the noise got louder and louder and I couldn't take it anymore. I took it in for one last time and left the car there for 2 days. It took them quite a while to find what the issue was. It was a pipeline that came out from the air conditioning unit through the heat shield, and it's touching the heat shield through a hole. They had to release the pressure of the pipe and then loosen the heat shield to remove it, to reposition it so that the pipe doesn't touch the heat shield. Once they've done that, the noise was gone. The third issue was with the wiper blade. That's a very small issue. I drove back to Auckland and I straight away went to buy a Bosch wiper blade and replaced it, and it had no problems since then. So all these issues are pretty small issues which were solved pretty quickly. So again, I had no major issue with this car in terms of its quality, its engine, its gearbox, brakes, all the major mechanical parts. They were working very, very fine. I took on a road trip with this car for a 3-day road trip, and it caused no issues whatsoever. It's been really, really reliable. So overall, I have really, really enjoyed my ownership of this car for 2 years. Hopefully there are more years to come for me to own this car. I think this is a car that I will keep for a long time because I feel I'm very fortunate to be able to own this kind of car from new. This is a very, very engaging and very special sports car compared to some of the modern sports cars out there nowadays, because this is so light, so direct. You feel everything and this experience is so visceral. Nowadays, the new sports cars, modern sports cars, are mostly very insulated, very distant from the driver, less engaging, and most of them are auto as well. This manual gearbox with this powertrain, this lightweight, it's just a joy to drive. I have never taken this car to the track. I want to keep this car as a road car for me because I feel this is a very engaging car to drive on the road. I love it. I just love it to drive it on the back roads with friends, just blasting it away on the back roads. It's just so much fun. On the track, I have my GT3 and my Type R to drive. I think that is enough. I'll try to keep this as a road car, and I'll keep this stock as well. The only modification that I have done is an exhaust button that I've installed. It's a plug and play. I now always turn the exhaust on when I get into the car. This is one of the best mods, I think, for this car because you can keep the exhaust noise there all the time. If you have it closed, it actually sounds quite muted below 4,000 RPM. So this is a good mod, and I think this is probably the only mod I will do for this car. I think this car right now is perfect. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. I will be bringing you my ownership review of my GT3. That's a 1-year review, and also my Type R. That's another 1-year review, and also my S2000 as well. I've owned that for 2 years already as well. So again, if you like these kind of videos, please subscribe and hit that like button, and look forward to seeing you again in my next video.